Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Outer Sounds. We're here with Rose Bandt, and we'll be talking about her life, musical career, and whatever else we want to get into. And most specifically, her album "Soft and Fragile" from 1983, which was just reissued on Efficient Space. And this is the February selection for Outer Sounds. And we're really happy to be here with you. How are you doing?
Thanks, Greg. It's lovely to be here too.
Yeah, so I want to just kind of get a little context for this album, and just talk about your music and your musical career in general. But if you want to start by just telling us a bit about your background and how you got involved with music, and kind of what sort of led you to the music that you were making on this album or some of your earlier recordings.
For sure. I grew up in a really musical family. We had two really large rooms with a piano in each one with glass doors. So we used to have sing-songs and all of this sort of thing. And my
Mhm.
father invented the ute for Ford. So that took us on lots of journeys around the world. So
Okay.
right there, as a child, I was so lucky to be born into innovation and delightful enjoyment of music of all kinds. Um, I was never going to be per se a musician or anything like that. I was really interested in philosophy and ideas,
Hmm.
and the very good Canadian education system told me that things could be quite different from what you thought. And it was miles ahead in the 60s when I was over there. And I think I was really inspired by that trip in America and traveling at a very young age to experience Thailand and all over the Middle East and things like this, that I could really feel the difference in culture and the sounds that made. I remember being really struck at 13 with the Wailing Wall
Oh
and
yeah. Hmm.
sounds of an archaeologist scraping from a donkey with a teaspoon nearby. And I thought, oh, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
So I was sort of thinking, and I'm still doing sonic archaeology. So like it did
Right.
all come down in the wash, and I have done a lot of work in the Mediterranean, and um,
Hmm.
it's really delightful. But of course, I'm born in Australia here, and we're in a sung country, and that means that our First Nation peoples have sung every inch of this land. So to that. Um, um, I would like to give my respect to the elders past and present here through the sound of an aeolian harp which I have in the window. So you
Yeah, I
hear
just heard it.
these little sounds floating in as they will, which is very typical of my kind of philosophy in the soft and fragile improvisatory series. That um, it's much more like planned improvisation as real-time composition. Like I have put an aeolian harp at this window because I know it's set up.
Right.
So the context, like Indonesian music, is music for time and place. If I
Yeah.
didn't do that now, that wouldn't we wouldn't hear that. And that was something that I learnt from studying ethnomusicology at Monash
Hmm.
and playing in the gamelan and working with the wayang and having different experiences. But I was really mad about John Cage and wrote my first thesis on chance and indeterminacy in his works from 1950 to 1970.
Yeah.
And so that was a really big eye opener that anything, if we're going to have that premise philosophically that everything we do is music and
Yeah.
anything can be it, I thought I was going to be writing a PhD in the philosophy department on indeterminacy, and I had also um, studied early music by this time in Basel in Europe.
Hmm.
And so I was studying historical improvisation and ornamentation there. And that meant that I had this huge kind of thing of, well, am I going to do a French Baroque trill now on my microtonal ceramic gongs, which was a really neat idea. Who else could do this? Who would
Right.
have four Judy Lorraine microtonal coil pots that are a whole firing in one pot? Um, and who would be able to do an auditeur coulé or whatever,
Hmm.
according to, and so
Yeah.
I had a lot of equipment that I could blend and have fun with in new ways. And so that idea of curiosity and having a lot of training and skill, but being able to play, like you can see a little piece of mine, white picture behind me here on the wall.
Yeah.
It looks like a Kandinsky, and it's really chopsticks that I've painted all different colours on every side. And I made a whole bunch of these as compositions, number 1, 2, 3, 4,
Like graphic
um,
scores of some sort.
yeah, and
Yeah.
also and now I've just brought home a packet of, I think, we've got to get rid of all the plastic straws, and I found a
Yeah.
packet at the beach house, and there's 250. So we're probably going to see pink, yellow, and green plastic straw pickup sticks compositions on a vibrating amplified plate or something, God knows
Yeah.
what, floating in the water, but definitely natural processes, because the natural processes are all through of the environment and of being alive, and that we're all nearly all water, and that we live in all these, one tiny galaxy that's part of so many. Um, I think for me, as Earthlings, I've always loved what happens when you throw a whole bunch of balls down at the same time from a ladder. I've always loved immersing
Mhm.
myself in water and winding up toys and see what they'll do in water, and all these kinds of playful gestures. And I probably got a lot of that from Cage's water music, that kind
Yeah.
of idea. You know,
Yeah.
my mother, who was a lovely violinist and pianist, just despaired when I had my coat hanger exhibition of thousands of coat hangers amplified with piezo pickups in an old factory.
I'd
My
like to
dear,
hear that.
you play such beautiful flute. Why would you want to even do that? Why are coat hangers from the dry cleaner? There were
Hmm.
thousands. I suspended thousands into these moving mobiles, and they were connected with slinkies. So if you
Okay.
moved two of them, and the whole room could be made as an Aeolian room, because it was a loading bay for an organ factory.
Yeah.
So it had a huge big roller door on the first floor, and this was on the first floor. So I could just move the door, and the whole piece would take 20 minutes, a decay piece, for it all
That's
to calm
amazing.
down.
Yeah.
And that was the first sound installation that I ever did in 1977, which predates this.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
heavily involved in ideas. There was a maze in the room that I wanted people to use, one of those things like the toy telephone, and hit all these objects that had different resonant frequencies and absorption rates, and
Yeah.
go for this walk in this big gallery that in another room next to the coat hangers, with their coat hanger. And I did closed circuit videos of them all. And that was seen to be like everybody, complaining about new media back in the day. Oh, you can't do that to people, and but I've always been really kind to my listeners. I don't have really loud stuff that blows your eyes
Right.
and ears and senses out, because at the end of the day, look, we're earthlings. It's really lovely if we can enjoy something really, really sonorous and beautiful. And the palette is
Yeah.
really, really important to me. And the whole of the world is a soundscape palette, but also what we choose to do on that, where and how we disperse that, is what I tried to find words for in 1980, before I made the sound playground for kids. I really didn't know what I was doing was called. I
Yeah.
had been teaching improvisation, which was modelled on the UCSD course at La Trobe University with the professor Keith Humble,
Okay.
and he had introduced a lot of found objects and rooms. So I had taught that for probably nearly 5 years before I did this, and that included the time away in Basel as well. So I did have
Okay.
5 years of really fabulous input. But we still had computers. Were at the PDP-11, had to wait for a day and a night to do the
Right.
mailing list of the Musicological Society. So it wasn't like it was going to be for me to do sort of tech in 77 like this was quite a natural thing. And straight after that, I did, even before that, I actually did a 4-channel pieces, and the electronics thing might have taken over, but
Hmm.
I got so seduced with live performance.
Yeah.
And in this particular ensemble, live improvised music events came out of the La Trobe University,
Okay.
and they were students of mine. So it was part of a smaller cut off group from a much larger group called LIG, La Trobe Improvisation Group, which would do, oh, toning glasses and improv works of for people who wanted to participate in things.
Hmm.
And I'd been lucky enough to participate in some of those things in 1976 when I visited UCSD too, with Pauline Oliveros and David Dunn and people like that. So
Yeah.
I was really lucky also to have encouragement of Kenneth Gaburo and a lot of other people who thought I was onto something and I had something unique. I didn't care about that. I just thought if I could just make anything, it would be a miracle because I wasn't trying to like be an artist or anything. I was
Right.
exploring the world, and making
Yeah.
some beautiful sound. It wasn't about me and my career ever. It was all about, oh, what's that down there? Or
Yeah.
whatever. So that's the orientation I've had. So it's I can't believe that I've actually made an enormous amount of work and sort of people are re-releasing it and I feel very honoured. And of course, this year I've got the double year major fellowship for my life's work from beautiful Australia. So I'm
Oh, nice.
sharing that around with lots. That's the Richard Gill Award, and I'm very grateful for that. And I really have tried to pioneer sound. And for me to get that as a music award has been a really big step for everybody in the country because it's endorsing them. And also
Yeah,
the
that's
idea
cool.
that oral histories and one person, one voice and equality has always been really, really important to me. And my partner has brought up Aboriginal family, and I've worked with so many different cultures and collaborated with Vietnamese and back-to-back zithers. Um, for me, that idea of one person, one voice is really, really important, and especially in
Yeah.
the 70s. Um, Australia was really brilliant at forming wonderful multicultural facilitation for
Mm.
everybody, for migrants. You wouldn't know now, but we do have a beautiful history of integrating um, all different cultures
Yeah.
and have certainly built the nation into something that was so much more interesting than when I was born in Geelong in a kind of waspy town with cars and um, industry
Hmm.
to make it such something unbelievable. And luckily for me, my mother always used to take me out to Corio, where all the migrants were, and take some food out to a Lithuanian woman who didn't have anything, and then she'd be
Hmm.
sitting with the Indian woman who was trying to start the only restaurant in Geelong that was Indian in the day. So I used to be a frequent visitor of that. So I was lucky to have that kind of openness, and that was probably from um, their kind of spiritual church life, which they were very leaders in. And so it was like community arts for the
Yeah.
Uniting Church, kind of. So I had a lot of places that I could experiment as a kid too.
No, nice. Yeah.
Run dances, of the silver clouds with nets on the ceiling and all this sort of thing, and take people to the Jewish synagogue because I wanted to know what they did, and
Yeah.
things like that. So, which was a bus trip at 13 to Melbourne, which was a really big deal in those days for a kid like that to run a youth club and do those sorts of things. That was frowned on by some of the other people in the church, but so it was a little closed down for a little while. So there was always a little bit of discomfort about the new, probably for some people, in some things that I've done. But I
Yeah.
haven't really ever been. I want my work to say the stories. It's not like I'm out there. Right at the moment, I'm feeling a lot more like being an environmental activist because we've left it too late, and I've been
Right.
doing installations on the sound multi-channeling sea urchins and the sound of the shawm with the Uyghur shawm with Chinese ensemble for the Melbourne Recital Centre's 10th anniversary commission, which was actually funded by a Chinese woman.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's all very quite sensitive, some of these things that I end up
Hmm.
navigating.
Yeah.
And my feeling that Auntie Alice from the Lake Mungo period of my time up in the middle of Australia, the oldest living proof of continuing human culture in the world, she said to me, "You're a wild woman, but if you go with respect, everything will be all right." Because I was just getting so freaked out that I was going to have to
Yeah.
do all this work with all these people, and I would have to go home and just stay in my town where I was born, kind of thing, because you are of your place so much.
Right.
And Indigenous culture. Anyway, it all turned out a marvelous blessing she gave me, and she got her language back as she gave me that blessing, and she hadn't spoken it for 20 years. So she was excited about what us being in Lake Mungo would do for both of us, like try to get some kind of retuning in space. And so the time that I spent there, I took a 120 string Aeolian harp, huge sculpture, out to the sands, which is
Mm.
making this sound.
Yeah, I hear that.
So you have to have respect for the environment first, or you haven't got anywhere to live. So um, yeah, I guess I haven't talked much about music yet, have I?
No, you've touched on lots of different things. This is great. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I get a sense of your, your kind of your early, years and career and how you were traveling around and moving around. Your first album was improvisations in acoustic chambers, right? And I was going to mention that I've listened to that album, and it reminds me of what Pauline Oliveros and the Deep Listening Band were doing as well. And you mentioned that you had um, you know worked with her at UCSD and everything. So what
Well,
was
she
her?
didn't have any impact on me whatsoever.
She didn't.
No,
No.
I met her quite a few times
Yeah.
because there was way too much guru thing stuff happening for my personal taste, and I couldn't deal with that. I'd rather do sumier in a Buddhist class or something like that.
So you felt
And
like you just kind
well,
of
I
were
didn't. I
developing
thought
this on your own.
I didn't know very
Yeah.
much about her. I just met her at that once, and she said she was a friend of Warren Burt's, who was another tutor from America that had come out,
Okay.
and she was just taking me to UCSD, and she picked up a piece of paper that said Aardvark with a phone number on it, and she said, and she literally screamed, "That's improvisation! Give that to Warren." And I just found that whole thing, which is probably where the soft and fragile comes in. You know, um, I couldn't manage the energy
Yeah.
and the aggression in her, and
Interesting. Yeah.
um, of course, I gave her respect. I knew she was a famous American composer. That's about it at the time, but I didn't know anything. But David Dunn and uh, I went to one session only there, and the thing I was going through there was nothing about Pauline. It was that I'd realised that Keith Humble had lifted the whole course that I thought he'd invented from UCSD. So it was the beginning of my being sceptical.
Yeah.
You know, you find things they're not as you thought, and
Yeah. Where these come from.
that was a very good lesson. And I've of course run, you know, um, I ran into Pauline gave with Hildegard gave a concert in Dartmouth College when my Stack CD was launched in the night of, I did electroacoustic symphony in a big pollutant chimney stack in the middle of Melbourne, and
Okay.
made a really massive. It's called Stack, and there's a drive-through video on. You can get it online,
Okay.
and it's put out by Move Records, but it was commissioned by the ABC, and it took me a year to make, and it was really calling out improper behaviour. Anyway, so that was the time when that was getting launched. So I ended up hearing their accordion and whatever else it was there, and I just didn't feel like I had any musical connection with that at all, especially as what I'd been just doing with what they were doing.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was like really tricky for me. But I did have a continuing connection with David Dunn. We showed in Japan for an environmental gallery in Fukuoka, which was a really beautiful thing.
Okay.
Um, and that was nice to meet him again. So I guess that I have had quite a bit of influence one way or another because of having the improv lab, which was taken from there, about endorsing found objects and things like that. So, and that original thing, I was at La Trobe and I got a piece of long sewer pipe and a couple of things and a nagra and a cymbal and a couple of sheets of plastic, and I went off to the water tank in Corumburra, and and I just was experimenting fully.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't feel that they were experimenting fully.
Right. Right.
And I also in later years, when she set up the Deep Listening Institute, and I was a member of the World Forum of Acoustic Ecology, I I couldn't endorse. Um, I just thought that the terminology was 60,000 years too late, and that was improper.
Right.
So, and it was a sign of the times too. I think I'm a founding member of the World Forum of Acoustic Ecology, and we had a fabulous meet in Banff, and she was there, and I actually went to her early morning walk um, after I'd sat on the ice with the bear poo steaming beside me. It was having a lot more impact on me. I've been so close to a bear. So this was like, whoa. And with the acoustic ecology, and Murray Schaefer never really wanted that to be like that either. He didn't want to be. I had a lot to do with Murray. I played in his Coimbra Vibre in Portugal. I was the 1,000th musician,
Hmm.
and I just happened to have my Renaissance recorder there, and we were going to re-release the Medieval Monodies with La Romanesca, a medieval first song cycle ever, which was made in Vigo, and we were just around this area. And I ran into Murray, and that was the other Canadian connection. So things have
Right.
come. And Max Neuhaus, of course, coined the term sound installation, and I met
Right.
him twice. Once in the swimming pool in Bremen when he did his water music, and the
Okay.
other one at a big meet in the Tyrol where I was installing 6 centuries of salt mining history in the Halltal. So yeah, the business about the soft and fragile. I guess I was always going to be wanting original sounds that I'd made or found. I really was interested in understanding fully what they would do in all these instances I've just quoted, and that I would dream them into some profound context that was useful
Yeah.
after they'd been given to me through improvisation. It's like a gift I
Right.
found. And so, this idea of being appropriate, making sound that was appropriate to the time, the place, and the people.
Yeah.
And I've always had my installations to be free so that everybody could go and come back. So that's been a very different world from other people. In fact, I really don't like performing in the um, traditional venues much. I have toured for
Right.
Music Viva all over the world, and I have been commissioned by the best bodies, but I don't live in those environments.
Right.
I'm
Right.
just as happy to perform my new Pelican piece with the hydrophone recording of where all the borders of Northern Macedonia, Greece, and Albania meet in a little church in Box Hill.
Yeah.
I'm more
That kind of
because that
stuff's
was the
great.
right one. It had the right visual there, and I was invited.
Hmm.
Nobody got anything.
Right.
Everybody
Right.
shared. And this word is not very good in the West. It does not get what it needs to do in the West, to share.
Right.
And what I'm trying to do is to share my passion for sound with other people and hope that they'll sing their songs. I never wanted to be a composer and tell people what to do.
Right.
I've just done 3 major commissions this year, and I'm all I can think of is getting all the things that are in my drawers, like this thing, and putting them in a digital book and giving them away so people have a bit more fun because people aren't having enough fun in COVID.
I know. I know.
And I mean,
It's
these things can
dire.
be done online in so many contexts. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to do with the second half of my fellowship. And I'm making things like these Karawong pieces I've been making,
Hmm.
um, which are for 5 or 50 players. So, and whistlers. So, because some people can whistle really well, and if they
Right.
hear something, they can do it straight away, but they can't interpret what's on a card, or they're frightened of anything you give them.
Yeah.
But if they heard you and they saw you and they wanted to imitate you, they could. And that, of course, that's a very big part of bird song. And we have the oldest DNA bird, the lyrebird, in Australia that can do all the birds. So,
Yeah.
and perching birds. So everybody should get on their perch and do whatever they can and really have fun on their perch, you know.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm kind of enjoying now. We did it became a trio in the end because the Baroque violinist couldn't come from Vienna for the first performance. And then we've had all the cancellations like everybody, you know, so things merge and become other things, and half bands become a trio of all
Yeah.
recorders, no Baroque Amati violin, sorry. But
Make do with what you have.
yeah, and I mean, actually, the Melbourne Recital Centre's been quite generous to artists, and we were able to workshop something in there during COVID, and that ended up being like a rehearsal for what actually almost nearly happened, except there were three, not four people. So you never know what's going to happen now, and I
Right.
think I think that there are a few things that humans need to get out of this, and that is keep up. I mean, we're so
Yeah.
slow. You know, the viruses and insects are mutating at a massive rate, and we're just not doing anything except rechanneling all these old ideas. So,
Right.
for part of me, this is kind of weird having all these re-releases, and too, because you know. But you know, I'm really thrilled that people can see the love and the beautiful sound in it.
Yeah.
And so, when you if you're going to make a song, give it's a present. If it's a nice present, you might want to see it again. You know, oh, you might
Exactly.
check
Yeah.
it out. You know,
And new and
that's
different
it.
people can find it, you know.
Yeah, and then I just think that. So I am so fully into giving everything away. I mean, um, and the whole of the bureaucratizing of music in the West is a pretty hateful business model. And I've always managed to do something else. Luckily for
Yeah.
me, um, I've brought in, you know, three ARC grants. I wrote a book on sound sculpture on one of them that's a really beautiful book on what was happening in Australia in the 90s. It was published in 2000. And I paid off my house. So I had a roof over my head. So then I can just be all right. You know,
Yeah.
we've got to be all right. And try to share what we have and
Yeah.
give people possibilities to watch things. And for me, when I'm in tune with the flagon, like it's very much a summer music. Uh,
Mhm.
One decade ago, I did a whole raft of concerts. I got a new studio across the road where I was trying to have this interview so everybody could see, and I could have given demos and
Right.
everything.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
There's a building site and there is a childcare centre and there's little kids. Well, I didn't mind that. But the truck going beep, 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 no thank you. We're not doing to our listeners, are we? We're looking after their ears. So it ended
Yeah.
up being back in the music room. But when I go and I play the flagon, when I had it in the house that I lived in Brunswick at the time, which I think Michael might have sent you a beautiful photo of me sitting on the floor. And if he hasn't, he should, because that's a really lovely one. And you can see the only big gong on the bottom row that's been really, really critical in this album, which
Okay.
broke on the way to this studio.
Oh
So I'd
no.
had it for 30 something years and I'd travelled all around this, and that was part of it, that you have to care for your stuff, you know.
Yeah.
One day on the way to Clifton Hill, where I had the coat hanger exhibition, I had all my flagons in these big mango glasses in nappies, all, you know,
Yeah.
each one like an egg, an emu's egg or something, you know. Well, the clutch cable on my old combi gave out right in the main intersection on Sydney Road,
Uh-huh.
and I just thought, how am I going to get all of this? And I thought, there's a taxi rank over there. And somebody came along on a bike and helped me lift everything into the taxi. And then,
Uh-huh.
luckily for me, they pushed the car over, and my first husband saw it, and he just rode it to the concert. He drove it, you know, bouncing it. But if I'd have done that, that would have been the end of the whole of the instrument.
Right. They're just
Because every time I'd
breaking.
go over a bump, I'd think, oh my God. And just recently, I had this experience again because the potter, Judy Lorraine, turned 90. and
Mm.
she had given me all those beautiful clay bells and everything, but they weren't as resilient as the glass. They
Yeah.
would get little tiny little fractures in them. And
Right.
actually, I've only got three of the really big ones because the fourth one, I had them underneath a servery in my Brunswick house, and the cat jumped on them and they all hit together. And one of them got a really fine fissure in it, so it became
Yeah.
a ceramic. And it's a water bowl. It still holds the water though, so it's out in the garden still, as you know, for the birds, because it's a really big, beautiful pot with black Japanese fireware that she invented,
Yeah.
which is a really high fire uh, um, before porcelain sand. What is it? Anyway, it's not quite over 100. It's about 90 degrees in the kiln, so it's the highest you can get with this type of clay.
Right.
Um, and so these other little things that are on this CD, this vinyl, is these little dot dot dot, which are sort of. She was inspired by Japanese wood blocks. They've got a slit in them.
Oh yeah, I know what you're
Why
talking
don't
about.
you
Yeah.
just track the little beater right around the edge? And
Hmm.
live as a group, we practiced this 5 hours a day, these hockets. And the shifts piece, I'm playing on the half of four the whole way through the beat. The whole way.
Okay.
I don't do anything. Bum, ba dum, bum, ding, ba dum, bum, ding. And they're going, da, 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 da. And they shift all around each other. And I'm the fixed point on the half
You're
of
doing the
four.
fixed one. Yeah.
Yeah. And to play for her, for Judy at 90, she had made ocarinas and beautiful things to me. She even made a set of traveling bowls on an Arabic scale for me so I could take them to New York, because it was too hard for me to take these huge things around, you know?
Yeah.
So they've been all over the world, these sounds of glass and clay in different forms. There's samples, and the latest re-release, the latest album that we've just got out was made in the Yerebitan system, and it's at the time when we did two live performances in there with the Medusa ensemble. I wrote a kind of uh, a 10 movement symphony of electroacoustic forms, and we had three rehearsals, and we did it with brilliant a world ensemble I got together. And
Mm.
these glass things were going to be, I had hoped, Medusa's tears in here.
Oh,
We
okay.
were going to, because there was a really fabulous, Istanbul's known for its glass. And I thought,
Mhm.
this is natural. And at one point, we were going to I was going to be in residence at the Glass Bow, and I was going to make these open tiers suspended from the Romanesque ceiling, and then get some of them in the water and hit them
Mm.
so that they
Yeah.
change the pitch and all this sort of thing. In the end, I used a hydrophone swimming live feed from my submarine ancient hydrophone made in Australia in there, and the carp was swimming, and so they get to go and hit. So they've got a whole movement to themselves, because we
That's
have to
cool.
share spaces, and they're there now. And although right at the moment it's shut for renovation, so we couldn't get any more tears dropping from the ceiling. But you can hear these sounds that I've emulated on the glass, and they're all through that. And so the making of the flagon for me is definitely a lasting sonic palette, like the Aeolian
Yeah.
harps
Sounds
and the
like it.
Tahu that made by Peter Biffen, that I spent the uh, the whole of the decade 2006 to 2016 to make the double Tahu CD over two oceans connection CD,
Okay.
Mediterraneo, and it's all on Bandcamp on the Hearing Places website, so you can
Yeah.
listen to that. But you can hear how this glass music has threaded through in different areas. So
Right.
the glass with the tahu is amazing. And if you have a look at the concerts that I did when I moved, with now I've got this broken gong. I've got the big gong, and it's that I've had all my life, and it's a sacred object, and I'm having this heart filled. So I did. My son said, "Oh, God, Mum, what are you going to do? I mean, he's an artist too, and he said, you're just going to move into that studio and just do what you always do. I said, yeah, what's that?
Yeah, like
Because it's always, I don't even know, how does he know?
little
Anyway,
bit
he
of
said,
everything.
well,
Yeah.
challenge yourself. So I did 10 free concerts in this same venue with everything I had to do with glass from my whole life. And that was
Nice.
called the Floating Glass Exhibition. And in that, I took all the big A had gone, the tuning one, and the big one. And so I got a Perspex tray that I'd used for another show, and filled it with water and the hydrophone in there, and made suspended sculptures that I could drag in the water, and I could improvise in this whole glass water world, because of course
Mm.
glass is water in another form. And that kind of was like a goodbye my beautiful gongs, with
Yeah.
the phoenix now.
Yeah.
And so you can see what I did there. There's a
Starting to sound. Yeah.
on the Vimeo and the YouTube videos, floating glass. If you look that up, there's a lot of videos there. It's also um, the glass music has been part of a video sequence that I did in for the Athens Video Festival of jellyfish.
Mm.
And so there's an 8-minute piece of jellyfish, and that's all scores for glass.
Okay.
And I performed once with Renaissance tenor recorder over that whole video with the glass, which was really beautiful too. But medusa, jellyfish. Yesterday on the beach, I was photographing these clear jellyfish of this season.
Mm.
They're all around us, and things are seasonal, and they come in the summer, and it's fascinating. They're all globular, and they're different
Yeah.
ones from the ones that I've got in my piece. And I'm thinking, see these before. And then I found out that there was lion sea mane jelly that used to just be the largest jellyfish in the world, with this long tail that can take whole big shoals of large little sharks and big fish.
Hmm.
Huge. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of them in Port Phillip Bay, just down here now.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So, like this, and when I was in Istanbul, actually, I've tried really hard to record a jellyfish, because, of course, they've only got a moving stomach in here, and
Right.
they just make a little tiny thing, and it's just, you can't even really hear it, but it's like, and that's only when they're eating, and can tell they're eating, because when you look at the stomach, it's pink.
Okay. Yeah.
So when that's pink, they've got, pardon me, something in there that
Yeah.
they can do. Well, I wanted to, so I've used these pulses of the actions of their stomachs and their aggregates together when I was artist in residence at the aquarium, and I was able to film these.
Hmm.
And oh, that was sensational work to do. To just see the movements
Yeah. They're
and the
so cool.
temporality of these beautiful creatures.
Hmm.
And the lion sea mane jelly comes at the end, the tail. It's
Yeah.
all like smoke rings. I used to smoke on the bamboo chair outside my studio. It reminded
Yeah.
me,
That's what it looks like.
you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, that's quite a journey. I like how, you were saying that when you made this instrument, that's like something that you've been living with, for, we're talking for 40 years now, you've been
And for
playing
30 years, I played
playing
it
this
every night
instrument.
to say goodbye to the day.
Yeah. That's
So
beautiful.
you get an amazing kind of um, tuning. And because they're microtonal, and I know how they're all like, um, they're all they're handmade, and some have got seams and some haven't, the glasses, so they've
Right.
got dimples, and so when you've been playing it, then you know just where to go,
Right
and
where to
which
hit
beat.
it.
And
Yeah.
I've got all these different beaters that I do, and I
Mhm.
doing them all together and getting the resonant tones. And then there's the kinetics, just like the jellyfish, of me being a vertical percussion marimba player. That's
Right.
what it really is, a glass marimba.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm doing this, and a lot of it's coming out of the feeling of breathing, and the fact that one whole piece on this vinyl is the a Passacaglia on my breath length. So
Right.
ocean
The
spells.
first one. Yeah.
Bom, bom. Be da dee da dee dee
Yeah.
dee. That was
It's
lovely.
nice to
Did you hear
bring the
that?
breath to a
My partner
percussion.
just came in and he
What's
just hit
that?
a bottle by mistake.
Oh.
There was a glass sound just as I finished. That's amazing.
Oh.
Things all come in
Perfect.
their tuning, don't they?
Yeah.
You know. And I'll probably have a glass of tonic after this
Yeah. I know. I
from a
need
glass
something
bottle.
myself. So, yeah, but bringing in the breath to a percussion instrument is very nice because it can be, percussion is more, movement oriented or mechanical, but
But you can see all of my
bringing the breath,
historical
that's great.
musical instruments there
Yeah.
behind me, and the Aeolian harp here.
Oh, whoops. Did I lose you? I think I lost you there for a second. I think I lost you there. Oh, there she is.
Sorry, Greg.
That's okay. Something happened, dude. The
It's really funny because I moved.
plug came out or something.
Being
There
a
we go.
serial improviser, I took the whole computer and was going to turn it around and show you, but yeah, cut it off. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
But I'm prone to doing these sorts of things, and it often yields really interesting things about which I can know nothing, which is always wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, that's, love to talk about what your recent, what kind of recent, music and works that you've been working on. The other thing I wanted to ask too is, um, a couple things that, it seems like you've kind of just sort of paved your own path in Australia and working in music down there. Have you been able to connect and find a lot of people there who are interested in, sound and listening the way you are, and trying to work with, collaborate with people, or just being around other like-minded people as well? Or is
At the
that
beginning,
difficult?
it was really tough.
Yeah.
Um, I was There was just Warren and me basically, and everybody used to say, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
that was how it sort of was." But there were actually other people that were doing that. But in the kind of musical circles that there were, and of course, we're very different. And
Have you ever met, I was in Australia probably 15 years ago playing music, and I met briefly, Phil Dadson. Do you know him?
yes, we
Yeah.
I know him
In the from
from
scratch.
scratch, yeah, from the
Yeah,
old days. In fact, Lime did in 1983, was it? Whenever the New Zealand Wellington Arts Festival was on in New Zealand,
that's
Lime
right.
went
He's
over
from New Zealand.
and he was there, and John Gibson was there,
Oh, cool.
who marked my PhD,
Yeah.
and we're really
Rest in
good friends.
peace. Rest in peace, John. Sad.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
And beautiful Nancy. Anyway, um, I took him to see John Gibson's work at the. We didn't have a video player that had American video player, and John had this
Okay.
really fabulous, jumping green, fabulous minimal video. And of course, I was analysing all these structures in my PhD, and I just finished it. So, like
Yeah.
um, I was just digging it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I asked him if he'd like to come, and I suggested that Lime and From Scratch get together and we have a jam, but it didn't
Didn't
kind of.
happen.
I was a bit frightened. I think I don't know.
Yeah.
There were girls in our band too. I think it was a hard time, so like you can't ever know why things are as they are fully.
Right.
But Yeah, he's been a great star of that. But we also had guys from the West who did really beautiful pipe music too, like Lime did. We told stories in the main street in blow up tents with appliques and everything on them
Hmm.
in front of for all the little kids in the middle of Alice Springs. It's like in 1984.
Hmm.
I'm 8 months pregnant. I shouldn't have been getting on a plane,
Okay.
but I had a double residency for the opening of the Araluen Arts Centre with La
Yeah.
Romanesca at night and um, Lime in the day.
Yeah.
So, that was an interesting coming together of everybody. And of course, my son was born then, so he's had all that boop, 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 boop in him. And he's got a
Deep inside.
little gorgeous little part Mauritian daughter who's 5 months, and she's going to do the Sega. You can be sure of that.
Yeah.
She's got a full son, Leo. She's a go anywhere, love life baby.
Yeah.
So it's this is the one thing that we can hang on to in all of this COVID that we do all lose members of our families and things through all the terrible loss that's happened. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry to send to the world my grief for sharing a lot of that. I lost my sister this time last year, and now my next sister's probably. It's been quite a stiff time for me.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but the best thing we can do is to listen to the beautiful sound of the cosmos. And I just think it's like nature's. We have these great casuarina trees with the pine needles in them. And
Hmm.
when I designed the Aeolian harps, which was a community project up at Mildura, up in the Murray River, and with VCE people who were the first ones ever to do sound sculpture as a final year art thing, and they made this sculpture with me, and it was exhibited on the river flats.
Hmm.
And it's kind of um, when people get together with a common interest for a common dedicated thing, absolute amazing stuff happens.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And you can't buy this.
No,
You have to
you have to
make
get
it.
together and do it. Yeah.
And that was always, how I saw it, and that's how I see it now. And that this is the beauty of being alive, of being in tune, being lucky enough to be there to hear it,
Yeah.
being able to make a beautiful thing. I've got this little cardboard harp here that's made because I was commissioned to do a piece for all the harpists makers in Australia, of which there are many.
Hmm.
And so I recorded the Aeolian harp sounds inside all of their harps. Well, they'd never listened to the wind, but it's the sound that the casuarinas makes, and that's what Auntie Alice and I were talking about
Right.
out there on the dunes. This is the common sound that we all can share. And she said, whatever you do in your life, keep this going because it's not really political. It's
Right.
inclusive,
Yeah.
and we all share the trees. And some of us, are clever enough to get together and get everybody to make a beautiful harp together.
Yeah.
And that was an invitation too. I wasn't going to do that. I was going to go and be artist in residence up at the Murray, and I was going to do all this sprung steel stuff. Well, I would have set the whole vineyard alight if I had have done that then. Recently, I had a little experience with my dish of water that I was using for the Currawongs inside the recital centre, and God bless them, they let me take it in there. Huge, great big thing, which is I was moving to try to get to the Flagong to do this interview with the Flagong. But anyway, what happened is that I took it over to my engineer and we had to make a plug for it because it's got a hole because in one thing I use it as a dripper.
Okay.
And so he was making this plug for it and then he filled it up with water on the back step and the sun came through the water and started to burn the mat.
Hmm. Wow.
And I thought, this isn't rubbing sticks together, darling. This is just what's up there.
It's the
This is
sun.
the
Yeah.
fireball of the sun. And oh my goodness, there's things to discover every second,
Yeah. Always. Always.
and I think that's what I hope people will enjoy in my music. And
Yeah.
sometimes, I get really quite. in the old days because nobody had heard any of this sort of music. Somebody came up to me after my first flagon solo concert in Castlemaine. It was at 10 o'clock at night, and Fee Broadway, who was a fabulous theatre, had invited me. I just came back from the Paris Autumn Festival. This is thing. She's got sushi coming at 10 o'clock at night in Castlemaine in regional Victoria, and everyone's sitting on the floor on cushions and they're listening to me, and I've projected
Yeah.
with lights up onto this beautiful architectural form, which is the same as the flagon. So I'm playing here, and you get a kinetic score above while I'm playing. It looked absolutely fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know, this, I think Joe was 2 at the time or something. I was living in the back of a bookshop on a, bit of a bed. It was like, but it was so exquisite, and that she thought to do that and to invite me to do that. I wouldn't have thought of that. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
exactly right. And the guy came up to me after this and he said, "Oh, your music's so Taoist." And I'd studied a lot of stuff with Cage, with Suzuki and stuff like that, and the I
Right.
Ching and all this.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have said that I was like intentionally Taoist, or even that I would be able to
Yeah.
say in what way and whatever. But anyway, now that I always take Lao Tzu with me everywhere I go in my saltery case since
Yeah.
then,
There we go.
to keep everything in order, that we don't get inflated ideas of who we
Yeah.
are. I think to be able to sink into the sound and to go with that is quite asking people to give themselves over.
Yeah. There's a surrender there for sure.
Yes, and I think that I have to do that when I'm making my music too. Even if I've got a plan, it still has to be given as the gift,
Yeah.
note by note, moment by moment. And that's the big joy for me. And while I'll always play the flagon while I'm
Yeah.
alive, and I'll always listen to Aeolian harps.
Yeah.
And while I'm this fit, I will always play my spike fiddle, which is quite a lot to manage.
Yeah.
But I have taken up the ancient Greek lyre because my partner's an ancient Greek scholar, and in lots of some of the even vinyl re-releases of things that Masonic archaeology, I'm now accompanying new works of Hesiod. Don't piss in the river, says Hesiod. This is like a long time ago, but
Yeah.
Aboriginal people have been saying it for a lot longer, so everything gets in perspective. And he's
Yeah.
Irish, so that put everything in perspective for me as a Westerner when I met
Yeah.
him. And so now there's the Irishman that was studied at Cambridge, performing in ancient sites all around Greece with me, accompanying him on the ancient Greek lyre, which is a really beautiful thing to
Yeah.
have.
That's nice. Yeah.
And some of the people that I've worked with as research assistants and people that I've mentored are the dearest friends and beautiful musicians, and John Drummond comes to mind. I took him to Delphi with me to be the 7 nights of uh, sonic metamorphosis in Delphi, which was quite
Hmm.
amazing. We used dances with the walking artists. So some of these collaborations have got really, really huge now, and you can see them all on the Hearing Places website. You
Okay.
can see long videos of this, and on my own website, www.rosbandt.com/works, you can just scroll down, and beautiful Miniko keeps that tidier than I would ever be able to.
Yeah. It looks nice.
Um, and scrubs the glass too, so it gives it the Japanese factor. It's wonderful. A lot of my cultural influences from taste and of aesthetics are French and Japanese because I have studied sumi,
Yeah.
and I've accompanied on the Psaltery my sumi um, teacher who was French. He's passed away now, but André Solier, and
Hmm.
for years and years I've done that, and I think that has meant that I have not given myself over to Sibelius and all these things. I do
Yeah.
calligraphic scores because once you've been a painter, you don't just sort of go and do something that somebody said that you should, that doesn't fit your whole why you're doing it.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And I've had people say this to me, "Oh, but you have it's not proper, like.
Yeah, well, what's proper at this point? You know what I mean? Like,
I just made this beautiful piece for
who's to say?
these people, and and I asked Alana this last one for regrowth. Just got and there's maps of the weavings of the soundscape, so that for each of the four movements, people can understand how all the way that the drones of the Narrabri telescope dishes and the um, air sounds of the mine in Austria and all these other things are all woven together to get that sound. And that
Yeah,
Alana and I were improvising on a grand piano and some stuff in the University of New England, and we made a studio up there with an engineer, and she's playing all these wild, gorgeous recorder players because she's played in the Royal Winds in Amsterdam, and we just we just launched it after it was cancelled at the gallery. We launched it in another new local venue that wasn't there then, and
okay.
the place where we made it, the whole of the music department is totally blown up by a tornado and doesn't exist. There's one chair, and the kangaroos are having joeys in the field,
Oh, geez.
like 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
So like I'm coming back from on this big road trip, and I'm walking through the cut stubble of stupid white fella farmers up to my shoulders across the road. I thought they were beautiful whirly grass seeds, but they weren't. It was the stubble from the um, the big harvest,
Yeah.
and I felt like some pioneer explorer going out there because we couldn't see. It was hard.
Yeah.
So I got out of the car and I walked through this stuff. And when I got there, I saw that there was somebody else over there, and there were two cars that had a big smash, and then there's a big truck coming down. In the end, we got through there, but that was just so frightening. It was
Wow.
42 degrees outside.
Jeez.
And while we've always had extreme conditions, and I was born in a water tank and a wheat silo. My mother lived in Pinaroo between the wars, and there's nothing there except, and I've always said that wheat silos are cathedrals of the landscape.
Yeah.
Which you just can't see anything else for miles, and you can just see the
Right.
stick, and you think it's a big telephone pole, and it isn't. It's a whole cluster of 10 silos made in the 1890s in Geelong at the
Right.
cement works, which has now just been pulled down over my dad's bridge that's named after him. It's like, nothing lasts. There's no safe place anymore.
Right. Everything's
Just
temporary, even the man-made stuff.
exactly. And so we can probably leave it there because ephemerality is the thing to enjoy this beautiful moment across the world that we're
Yeah.
connected. It's a
Right.
miracle.
Yeah.
I used to have to wait for the fax machine to spew out from the VDR in the middle of the night, telling me, what plane I had to get on or whatever, get myself to Cologne. But like hello, the noise of that and the anxiety of seeing the paper that would all fade, that fax paper, remember that with the
Yeah.
pink. But, that's all gone. And so
Yeah.
is all the digital world. That's all gone. Um, Cassettes are, nothing's going to last.
Right. Everything's changing. Everything changes. Right.
That's it. No, that's pandare is ancient Greek for that.
Okay.
And that is the name of my son's water exhibition of painting, which he puts
Hmm.
leachate of bad water stuff in water with the ink and makes these amazing Japanese papers. It's
Oh,
unbelievable.
cool.
So in the reforming and in the destruction, we will become something else.
Yeah.
But it's awfully nice to be able to play a historical instrument on the way there, or
Yeah.
touch a
Right.
peacock's feather, or throw a stick, or have a bit of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Do it all.
Yeah. Been lovely to speak to you,
Yeah.
Greg.
Yeah. I think we'll wrap it up there. And thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. And